Welcome to You Interview the Masters, the live series that allows you to help interview some of the leading minds in raw food, personal growth, human consciousness, and spirituality. And now your host, Steve Prusat.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to You Interview the Masters, and everybody for being here, which is also going to be airing on Raw Vegan Radio for the live event with our special guest tonight, Dr. Doug Graham, answering your questions about the 80-10-10 diet and more, raw food and beyond. Thank you all for being here. This event is brought to you by Veg World Magazine at vegworldmag.com. For everyone on the call, we've got a free issue of the magazine just for you right on the website where tonight's program is being aired at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham. Should be in your email as well, and we've got a link to that page on the Raw Vegan Radio episode, so just see the show notes there, and you'll be all set and get your free issue. We've got prizes coming out on this call later, so stay tuned for that, as well as a couple of special offers. We've got a special guest coming later in the evening as well. Freely Banana Girl will be dropping by. But without any more delay, I know lots of people are on the call and couldn't wait for this event, because it's your chance to ask the questions you've been waiting for, waiting to talk directly to the one and only Doug Graham, author of the best-selling 80-10-10 diet book, and we're going to bring him to the line right now, so stay tuned right now for that. And Doug Graham's a lifetime athlete and raw fooder since 1978. He's an advisor to world-class athletes and trainers all around the globe. He's worked professionally with top performers from almost every sport and every field of entertainment. And as you know, he's the author of the best-selling book, The 80-10-10 Diet, and many other widely received books and publications. His website is foodandsport.com. Let's welcome to the call right now, Dr. Doug Graham.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad to be able to spend the night with you.
Oh, this is great, Dr. Graham, and so nice to connect you with our audience here and give them the opportunity to ask some questions. But before we start, I just had a couple, and then we'll dive right in. How's that sound?
Fine by me. I'm open to questions.
So for those of us on the call that are new to the 80-10-10 diet and the raw food diet in general, can you just give us an overview of the 80-10-10 diet?
Well, 80-10-10 is based on a simple premise, or in fact probably several simple premises that are all come together as one idea. The first being that fruits and vegetables are good for you. I certainly believe that if there is such a thing as a species-specific diet, and every species except man has one, so I really think perhaps that humans do as well, but if there was a species-specific diet, it would be predominated by fruits and vegetables. So the 80-10-10 program revolves around the consumption of whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic fruits and vegetables, and does so in a specific way, which is what the 80-10-10 refers to. 80-10-10 refers to where we get our calories. There are many such configurations. There's one called the zone, where you get a certain amount of calories from protein, and there's other recommendations. Certain Pritikin longevity centers and the McDougall centers all use a program where you get about 10% of your calories from fat. And I looked at what the sports scientists had to say about sports performance and what the medical scientists had to say about medicine in terms of consumption of fat, protein, and carbohydrate, and it turns out they're all in agreement that when your fat consumption goes over 10% of your total calories, so that would be, say you were eating 2,000 calories a day, that would be when you're eating more than 200 of your calories from fat, that it has adverse effects upon the way your bloodstream can uptake, transport, and deliver oxygen and fuel to your cells. So fuel gets into your bloodstream but has difficulty getting out. This results in a situation we call high blood sugar. Oxygen, on the other hand, has a hard time getting into the bloodstream at all when the fat levels are higher, and so we get a deoxygenated situation where we're just not uptaking oxygen as well. this is called a lowered blood saturation, and when the blood level of oxygen is lowered, we can't deliver oxygen to the cells, and so we get into situations where cancer proliferates, the heart muscle can't work as well, the thinking becomes fuzzy, energy levels go down, and all the wrong things happen. And so, oddly, all the diets of the world consume roughly 10% of their calories from protein. Give or take a little tiny bit, but roughly 10%. And so using 10% was just an agreement with what everybody's already doing anyway. And the only caveat I put on the program was that my recommendations for 80-10-10 wasn't to make it a target, but was to make it a minimum and maximum situation where the minimum amount of carbohydrates we consume is 80% of our calories for the day, and the maximum amount of protein or fat we consume is 10% of our calories for the day. It's a real easy program to follow.
I mean, what are you seeing as the main problems in the philosophy overall in the raw food movement and where people are failing?
Well, I think the big problem we have is that raw food has more water in it than cooked food does. I mean, cooking food is a great way of driving off the water. And raw food very often has more fiber in it than prepared cooked foods do. This is one of the marks of the 20th century food prep, was that we learned how to remove the fiber from our food. So we were making it more condensed, more concentrated, food delivery packages. This has its own problems because human beings are designed to seek predetermined quantities of food in order to feel satiated. So with the NASA program, when I was a kid, I first became aware of this, 50-something years ago, when NASA was trying to figure out how to feed their astronauts in zero gravity. And they didn't have a way to do it, and so they finally said, well, what we'll do is we'll just create little tablets with all the nutrients that the astronauts need, and while they're up there in zero gravity, and they need to eat, but they're not going to need that much because the pull of gravity, they're not working that hard, and so let's just feed them with these tablets. Well, the idea was reasonably sound for a short-term fix of the problem, except that when the astronauts were up there in space, they found that they just weren't satisfied eating tablets. There wasn't anywhere near enough volume. And that was my first exposure to the idea that volume plays a role in satiation. It's not just calories. So with raw food, it takes a lot more bites to eat the same number of calories. And so people come into the raw food movement with a fixed idea about how much volume they're supposed to eat based on what they ate with cooked food. And it doesn't really work in the raw food world. You actually have to learn to eat more. Well, that doesn't work all that well if you're eating more fat. So we see people bump into problems where they start to crave. And anybody who's been on a raw food diet knows what I mean when I say you start to crave. When you start craving sweets at the end of the meal, there's a good chance, anytime you crave, you become a lot less discriminating in your choices. So if you're craving sweets at the end of the meal, it's a good indicator you didn't eat enough fresh fruit at the beginning of the meal. If you're craving anything in between meals, then you didn't eat enough fruit to hold you from one meal till the next. And this is just a learning process of learning to eat more volume. If you're starting to crave starches, which is a complex carbohydrate, it's a surefire sign you didn't eat enough simple carbohydrate in the form of fruit. And, of course, if at the end of the meal you just want really heavy food, you just feel driven to eat fatty, rich meal, nuts, a handful of nuts, just eat the whole bag of nuts, then eat enough fruit at the beginning of the meal to satiate yourself so that you could then move on to salad and eat as much of it as you want to eat. There's only 5 cravings that I'm aware of, the 5th one being a craving for salt. And if you ever have a craving for salt, that's your body telling you you need to eat more vegetables. So we have a program where when it's done properly, you experience no cravings at all, and we compare that to the, as you asked, to the traditional raw food approach, which is a very high fat, usually 60 to 80% of calories from fat. And that one leaves you just so rich in cravings that most of the raw food leaders in that domain openly admit that they're not eating a raw food diet.
Now, you work with a lot of athletes and trainers. Do you find this diet is best for an athlete, or is 80-10-10, this style of eating, good for pretty much anyone?
Well, again, I go back to the species-specific concept. A workhorse, a farm animal, is going to work a lot harder than a horse that has a life of leisure, as you will, and is going to have to eat more calories. But horse food is horse food, and a very active animal is always going to eat more than its sedentary counterpart. It doesn't matter what the diet. The diet is species-specific. And so if you're a very inactive person with a sedentary job and an inactive lifestyle, you're just not going to eat anywhere near as much food as somebody who's a world-class athlete. But the food shouldn't change based on that. Just the quantity of food. The caloric-nutrient ratio remains the same, but the quantities go up dramatically. There are athletes who might eat 4 or 5 times as much as a sedentary person eats. And that's just because they're so active. In fact, it's not that the activity makes the diet work better. I haven't seen that at all, ever. What does happen, however, with activity is that health tends to work a lot better. I don't believe a person can be a true specimen of health unless they're at least moderately fit.
You're listening to You Interview the Masters with Doug Graham right here at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham. Thank you all for being on the call. We will be turning the questions over to you soon. We're just getting an overview of the 80-10-10 and the raw food diet if you're just tuning in. We've got some prizes coming later in the call, so stay tuned for that. So, Dr. Graham, what is a good way to start transitioning towards this style of eating? What would you recommend? How much food do we need to buy and that kind of thing if we're just starting out?
Great question, Steve. It's a fascinating world, really, because think of it as if you were a smoker and you wanted to become a non-smoker. What would be the best way to do it? Would it be to ever so gently, gradually cut back on cigarettes? Or does every cigarette you smoke reinforce that smoking habit? Well, different people say different things, but I think that the more you go without smoking, the better chance you have of becoming a non-smoker. And I'll say the same thing for eating cooked food. I think that every time you eat cooked food, you reinforce your addiction to cooked food, and that the easiest transition to the raw food diet, and by far the most successful one, is the one where you just jump in with both feet. The problem isn't so much about the food, because anybody understands fruits and vegetables. The problem is that most people don't really want to eat raw food. What they want is they want the benefits of eating a raw food diet, but they don't want to eat the diet. This is true for all of us. I mean, we all want the benefits, but we don't want to have to put in the effort. And I believe strongly that people eat exactly what they want to eat. If they're eating for just the taste of the food, they're going to eat what they want to eat. And until you start living for the consequences that you desire, you're going to always eat food that looks good in some way or another. The beauty of the raw food diet and the beauty of 80-10-10 is that the food we eat does indeed taste fantastically delicious. I mean, how can you beat sweet and juicy? And yet, until people start taking personal responsibility to eat for the outcome that will happen, for the predictable consequences of their diet, we're going to find people eating a wide variety of foods. So for me, the easiest transition is the shortest one, the quickest one. It's like whether you inch your way into the swimming pool from the shallow end or whether you dive in. I mean, if you want to start swimming, the way to go is dive in.
Well said. And you're on the call with Dr. Doug Graham. We're going to be turning the microphone over to you in just a little bit here. If you're in the membership site, you can type in your questions. I see a bunch have come in already, and that's the membership site at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham. Okay. Or if you're on the call, it's *2 to raise your hand. You'll get in the queue, and we're just going to go in order. So *2 if you're on the call with us, and it is free no matter where you are in the world. Your webcast has directions if you're on Skype that you can join the conference that way by join conference and the conference code, and that's another way to do it. So, Dr. Graham, in all the years you've done this, and it's since 1978, have there been times where you've fallen off or, eating the wrong things? Since you're human like all of us, and some times in life we're not always perfect.
Well, certainly none of us are perfect. The idea is to strive for perfection. And in 1978, when I first went raw, I had no idea where I was going or what I was trying to do. I just knew that the diet that I was on wasn't getting me where I wanted to go. It was sort of like driving a car and having no idea how to get to where you're trying to go, but you know that you've already been to the wrong places, and so you're going to try another road. I tried a lot of roads for those first few years, a lot of different raw food paths that ended up as dead ends one way or another. I either couldn't stay healthy, or I couldn't stay raw, or I couldn't stay athletic. And so I went all over the place for almost 7 years, till about 1984, 85, somewhere in there, where the idea of eating a lot more fruit finally clicked in. And I started eating fruit for breakfast and fruit for lunch. At that point, I made major strides in my ability to stay raw and managed to do that for 6, 8, 10 months at a time before I would eventually cave and start eating starchy food yet again. Still not understanding why it was happening until I sat down one day and actually did the math. Around 1990, 1991, I finally sat down and did the math and realized that I just wasn't eating anywhere near enough carbohydrate. And so I started eating fruit for breakfast, fruit for lunch, and all the fruit I wanted before my dinner meal. After that, there's been no looking back, Steve. It's not a matter of cheating. It's a matter of what do you want out of life. There's two different approaches to being married. Some men say, well, you can't eat spaghetti and meatballs every night. But some men say when you're driving a Cadillac, you really don't want to go test drive a Volkswagen. So I feel I found the Cadillac, and I'm really not interested in foods other than my whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic plants.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Are you ready to turn the microphone over? We'll hear from some people in our audience right now.
Sure. Hopefully we'll get some great questions and answer some problems and help people solve their issues.
So one thing we'll say to our audience, please try to keep your questions as general as possible. This isn't going to be a private coaching session because for the good of the audience and people listening on Raw Vegan Radio, we want to keep the questions as general and broad as possible and for the good of the whole community here. So it's *2 to raise your hand. Again, you can type your questions in. A whole bunch have come in. We're going to get to as many as we could in the limited time we have Dr. Graham with us. So going over to area code 561, you can announce your name if you like. This one's in Florida, and you're on the call here with Dr. Graham.
Hi, my name is Beth. Thank you very much for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yes,
perfectly, Beth.
Hi. My question is, what is your feeling about hybridization of fruit? Because, I buy all organic fruit, but so many things don't have seeds, like watermelon and grapes, and even though I know that's all I can get, it's the best I can do, it just feels like it's not completely natural, and I just wanted to hear what your feeling was.
Well, it turns out that hybridization is indeed completely natural. It's how plants in nature morph from one to the next, and animals also morph as they reproduce through the generations. Your mother and your father, likely, I don't know you, but likely your mother and father weren't closely related. That makes you a hybrid. And I've spoken about this with many, many different biologists and other plant specialists, and they agree that on planet Earth today, all plants are hybrid. All plants are hybrid. There are none that are not. There's not one single example. You can look at the most heirloom of the heirloom tomatoes or wherever you want to go. There are no plants that are not hybrid. Now, some plants don't produce seed because that's not how they reproduce. So, for instance, Mutinja reproduces a new tree by having damage done to its roots. So if it scrapes the root up against a rock as it grows, or if a rodent gnaws on the root, it'll sprout a new tree right where that damage was done. Bananas sprout new babies by putting what they call pups off of the corm of the banana, which grows underground. Pineapple do something fairly similar. They put out babies without using seed as their reproductive method. Papaya produces seedless fruit completely on its own accord, because papaya is a plant that can be 100% male, 100% female, or anything in between. It's a totally hermaphroditic plant. And the all-female varieties of papaya produce no seed on the inside of the plant. There's many other examples of this. A friend of mine grew about 100 persimmon trees down in South Florida, and for the first 25 years that he had those trees in the ground, every fruit that they produced was seedless. Now they're producing fruit that has seed, just because the trees matured. But the fruit's been delicious for 35 years. I've been eating off of those trees for 35 years, and the fruit's been delicious the entire time. It's just that when they were younger, they didn't produce seed. So even a lot of the seeded varieties won't produce seed when they're young enough. I wouldn't have any worry. Now, GMO is a completely different story, but whether we hybridize as human intervention in the hybridization, or whether the nature did that on her own accord, hybridization is not something to be feared.
Thanks for the question, Beth. You're listening to Dr. Doug Graham on You Interview the Masters and Raw Vegan Radio. I'm really excited to let everybody know that's on the call or listening at a later date on Raw Vegan Radio that we've got a special offer for you. I just want to mention it's the first time available. The 80-10-10 ebook. The 80-10-10 ebook is available for all listeners. It's the first time it's available anywhere. Dr. Graham has contributed it to us as an offering, and we really appreciate it. It's going to help fund future programs. And you're going to get 20% off for all members of You Interview the Masters and Raw Vegan Radio. We are going to have it up for a few days. We have 24 hours. We're going to keep it up for a few days for you, and you can access that at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham. And if you're listening on Raw Vegan Radio, we've got a link right in the show notes for the special offer. Just look for the orange button. So thank you for that, Dr. Graham.
My pleasure.
And let's get back to the call.
I'm excited about it, too.
First time an ebook, right?
Absolutely.
So it's comprehensive and incredible. All the information you get in the book, and at a fraction of the price. So much gratitude for that. Getting back to the calls here in area code 201, New Jersey. You can let us know your name if you like. You're on the call and Raw Vegan Radio with Dr. Doug Graham.
Hi, Dr. Graham. I've read your book twice now, and I really enjoy it. I have a question, and and I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. I lately have wondered, can 80-10-10 be effective in healing the nervous system related to issues with anxiety and the sympathetic nervous system?
Well, it's a great question. I want to start by expressing that 80-10-10 doesn't heal anything. Your body's going to heal itself if it has the right substances, forces, influences, and conditions to allow it to do so. I'm sure you understand that, but I like to make it really clear that the diet isn't what's causing people to get well. It's always the effort of the body working on your behalf, because your body is programmed from the time that it's just one cell. Right? When the egg and sperm got together, they created a single cell, which is quite a miracle of math, 1 + 1 = 1. But from that moment on, the cells have always been striving towards optimum health. And when they don't experience optimum health, other than genetic causes, when they don't experience optimum health, it's because you haven't been providing optimum conditions, substances, forces, or influences. So it's a great feedback mechanism for us when our body demonstrates symptoms to let us know that we haven't been doing everything that we possibly could, as well as we possibly could do it in terms of meeting the body's needs. Now, what's interesting, I find, is that a perfectly healthy person can eventually develop symptoms based on these excesses or deficiencies of the conditions that we require, and yet we question whether or not the body can heal itself from those very same symptoms that it demonstrated, it created. So my answer is yes, 100% yes. I would expect dramatic healing if switching to the 80-10-10 diet represents a dramatic improvement in the way you're taking care of yourself, because your body will always demonstrate that it will improve in health to the degree that you improve the conditions that you are exposed to or that you undertake.
Thanks for the call. Our next caller over in Florida, area code 727. You're on with Dr. Doug Graham here on Raw Vegan Radio. Hello.
Hi, yes. My name is Ainsley. I've been following the 80-10-10 diet for a few months now, and I feel great. I've been taking a look at areas of my life that need improvement, and lately I've been thinking a lot about the water that I drink. My question is, what type of water do you recommend, like reverse osmosis or distilled, or is alkalizing water important to you? Do you prefer a certain type of filtration? This is just something that I've really been thinking about lately.
Again, another really good question, and it used to be one that I thought was a rather important question. Back more than 20 years ago, I actually created an audio cassette entitled Water. Talk for 45 minutes about water. And however, going to 80-10-10 and eating whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic plants, what I found is that my water consumption has gone so low that most days I don't drink any water at all. In fact, more days go by that I don't drink water in the course of a year than days where I drink any. And even on the days where I drink any, it's usually very little. Now, I understand some people might live in a place where it's 119 degrees all summer long, and they do their exercise at midday, and they have to consume gallons. But that's not most of us. And so at this point, I've actually downgraded the importance of water in terms of what kind of water you drink, because we just don't drink that much on 80-10-10, and there are bigger issues to be concerned about. So my recommendation is distilled water as the finest available. Reverse osmosis is certainly acceptable. I'm not a fan of alkaline water in any way, shape, or form. I think that's a lot of hooey, and it does not make up for any other negative influence that we might have in our life. You'd be better off just to participate in positive influences. But to be honest, it's a matter of not being a big deal because you just don't drink that much water. And so there are much bigger influences. How much sleep you get, how much fresh air you get, exercise, the food you eat, your emotional poise. I think these are all far bigger issues. The air you breathe and how much time are you spending with loved ones and developing your social graces. I think these are all far bigger issues than the water we drink, even though I understand the importance of water. And as I say, I would go with distilled or reverse osmosis as my first choices. But I mean, if you're only drinking a few sips a month, how much can it matter?
Thank you.
Hopefully that puts your mind at ease.
And thank you for these great questions. You're on the call with Dr. Doug Graham, and wow, really makes my job easy. Let's go over to area code 949 here in California. You're on with Dr. Doug Graham. Hello. Area code 949.
Steve, to answer your question. Oh, there we go.
Excellent. You can hear me very good. My name is Josh.
Hey,
and
Josh.
How you doing today, Dr. Graham?
It's an excellent day.
Excellent day. You kind of touched right there on that answer on some of the principles of natural hygiene. And I know that as a hygienist yourself, but it seems like in all the recent materials, there's not quite as much discussion of hygiene in 80-10-10. It's there, but it's in the background. Is there a reason for that, or why is hygiene not as tightly bound with 80-10-10 anymore?
Well, I think it's actually the opposite, Josh. I think it's more tightly bound. It's to the point I don't associate myself as a hygienist because that would lock me into certain guidelines that I may or may not agree with. But I'm totally in favor of healthful living, and as are the guidelines of hygiene. So for me, I think hygiene has become so automatic that I sometimes don't mention it. In all my live talks, however, I always begin by expressing what hygiene is, the science of human health, and the philosophy of hygiene, which is to make intelligent decisions based on the influences available to us, and the difference between the medical model and the hygienic model being that the hygiene model says that the substances, forces, influences, and conditions required for health when we're healthy are the same as those required for health when we're sick, but just modified 24/7 to meet the needs of the individual at that time, whereas the medical model suggests that those substances need to be altered whether we're sick or well, so that they may say, drink milk if you're well, but it'll make you congested if you're sick, or just say no to drugs unless you're sick, in which case definitely say yes to drugs. And so I haven't de-emphasized it in any way, but rather than teaching hygiene solo, I'm spending a lot of time teaching 80-10-10. I believe that 80-10-10 is if there was such a thing, the next generation of hygiene. This is hygiene moving into the 21st century, where we start talking about, rather than just personal hygiene, which was the beginning, right? The beginning was wash your hands, doctors, when you do surgeries, and if you blow your nose, you might want to wash your hands again, and when you go to the bathroom, wash your hands again, and all the personal hygiene things that we learned in the early part of the 20th century, and then some of what we would call physical hygiene, where we start going into the various aspects of the environmental conditions associated with hygienic living. Well, in the 21st century, we're starting to go more into what Rosie and I call emotional hygiene, and we're looking at the personal issues of living your life as a social being and refining the food issues right down to 80-10-10, rather than just a vague. The old hygienic diet used to be one where they said fruits were abundant and raw foods predominated. That was the old definition of the hygienic diet. Fruits and vegetables were abundant and raw foods predominated. Nowadays, for 80-10-10, we've come a little bit more clear and specific in that definition as well. So I like to think of what I'm doing as the next generation. I haven't dissociated from hygiene. I've just refined the process a bit.
And thank you for that call. Dr. Doug Graham, how are you holding up? Do you want to take a couple more questions? Then we'll pause for a little contest giveaway before we...
This is what I do for a living, but I love every minute of it. So
great.
As long as you want to go, Steve, I'm happy to go with you.
Awesome.
And to answer your question one more time, because I've got asked that question twice already today, and every time I answered it, they were told, yes, but you didn't answer. So to answer again, I haven't eaten any cooked food since 10 years before we met that day over in Los Angeles, and that was 10 years ago, almost to the day. So it's been now 20 years and more. So I follow 80-10-10 too. I just live it because it works so well. The outcome, the predictable outcome, is what I want. So I just keep playing by the rules because the rules work so well for me.
Yeah, that must have been about 8 or 9 years ago, and it was at the Living Temple in Huntington Beach, and it was probably one of the first episodes of Raw Vegan Radio.
I remember sitting outside with you on the bench and just having a blast with you.
Amazing. Okay, going over to Montreal. You're on the line with Dr. Doug Graham and Raw Vegan Radio. Hello. Montreal, hello, you're with us, Canada.
Yes, do you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, my question, hold on. Okay, my question actually is, I'm a 80-10-10. Oh my God, I'm really sorry about that. I'm a big follower of 80-10-10. I love the book, everything. I did raw for a while. I can't do it 100% right now. My problem is that I have a baby now, and my boyfriend doesn't really believe me. He doesn't understand the concept of 80-10-10 and everything. Explained it to him, and he's even reading the book right now. But what he keeps telling me is where's like the proof, like where basically is there any other sources that he can look at that also supports the idea of 80-10-10?
Sure. There's lots of sources, and thanks for asking. First of all, the book is based not on studies. Although I cite some studies here and there, the book is based on textbook influence. Textbooks don't rely on individual studies in order to draw conclusions. Textbooks usually require a minimum of 50 to 100 studies that all come to the same conclusions before those facts are added into the textbooks. So when I cite various textbooks, which I do in my back of the book summary, those citations are worth hundreds of individual studies that are all in agreement with each other. I think it's really important to understand that, when you cite a textbook, a medical textbook especially, that you're typically talking about something that has undergone a fantastic amount of peer review before it can make its way into print. So we can start there, but you can also just start with people like T. Colin Campbell, who recently 80-10-10 is the healthiest diet on the planet. I mean, this is a man who's the world's #1 renowned nutritional researcher, and he has come out with his full weight behind 80-10-10. In light of the fact that his son has written a vegan cookbook, to still come out and say 80-10-10 is the way to go, I think is a rather strong recommendation. Of course, Dr. John McDougall uses the phrase 80-10-10 in all his teachings, and he has probably got the most successful health clinics going in the entire world. Nathan Pritikin was the man before him who used to hold that record of the most successes claimed at health clinics, and he also used the principles espoused in 80-10-10 of keeping the fat into single-digit reference range. Certainly world-class athletes are individual cases where we're saying, look, here's what they're doing, and this is how it's working for them. The endorsement of individuals has got to be worth something because the proof's in the pudding. And whether it's the beauty competitors or the fitness competitors or the people who are doing challenging mind work, I think of Cyrus Kambata, who just finished his PhD using 80-10-10. Sam Spicer doing the same thing now, finishing up his PhD using 80-10-10. We're seeing people getting brilliant results in all avenues of pursuit, not just sport, but in all avenues of pursuit. So I think the not only the proof is in the pudding, but the science is all there to back us up.
And thank you for that call. You're on the call with Dr. Doug Graham. The hour's flying by. We thank you all for being here. It's *2 to raise your hand and get in the queue. We'll get you on the line with Dr. Graham.
I can think of one more that, if you want to really show people, hey, look, here's the science. There is a book that was created by the International Olympic Committee called Nutrition and Sports Performance. And the book Nutrition and Sports Performance by the IOC is a powerful support for the 80-10-10 diet. So,
I mentioned it earlier. For everyone on the call or listening to Raw Vegan Radio, we've got your copy of the 80-10-10 ebook available for a limited time. It's at 20% off for all members and anyone on the call and listening to Raw Vegan Radio. Go to interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham. Raw Vegan Radio will have a direct link to get this special offer. And again, thank you, Dr. Graham, for that. And this is the first time it's been out in the ebook format, best-selling book, and easily accessible. So thank you for supporting the show and Dr. Graham. Heading over right now to Phoenix, Arizona in area code 480. You're on the call with Dr. Doug Graham. Arizona, can you hear us? Okay, well, your mic must be muted or something, so we encourage you to call back and *2 to raise your hand. Right now, Illinois, you're on the call with us, area code 618. 618,
Actually, hi, Jamila Franklin. My question actually was already answered. It was actually about the alkaline water. But thank you.
Fantastic.
Great.
Glad to be able to do it, and I'm glad more than one person had that question. That's always encouraging.
It's *2 to get in the queue. I'm going to go over to some of the questions that come in during the call here, see how many we can get through. *2 if you want to be on the call live. And this one is in Sydney from Joe. Is it natural for someone who eats a lot of fruit and vegetables to feel cold easily than someone who eats the typical standard American diet?
Well, yes. The answer is yes. Certainly in the beginning years of 80-10-10, somebody eating a lot of raw food is going to feel more cool than somebody who's used to eating a lot of cooked food for a variety of reasons. First of all, the raw food is obviously at least 20 or 30 degrees colder when you consume it, and as we may know, water has a very high specific heat. If you take in cold water, it makes you cold. If you take in warm water, it makes you warm because, it's simply the warm volume of liquid. Fruits and vegetables being mostly water by volume, it certainly does affect body temperature, but at the same time, we have to look at digestive effort. Now, one of the things that happens with digestive effort is that we generate heat, and the digestive effort of working with cooked food can be as much as triple that of eating raw food. And so the amount of heat you generate, this is easy to measure simply by looking at heart rates before and after eating foods. So we see on cooked food that heart rates tend to go dramatically higher after the meal than they did if the same foods are eaten in their raw state. It's just more digestive effort to digest cooked food. Hence, you're generating more heat and you tend to feel warmer. But over the years, as health increases, once people stop losing weight, which is a fairly common thing when they go to raw food, over 80-10-10, once they stop losing weight, they can get used to being that trimmer person. They can put on some muscle if they want for a bit of insulation. Me personally, I found that in my first years of raw, I was very cold, but I don't suffer in that same way anymore at all. I'm not sensitive to the cold like I used to be. Even as much as I used to be, I remember as a child. Certainly, when you're eating cooked food, since cooked food predominates still, at least for a little while, just for a little while. I mean, there's already laws in many states making it illegal to cook. We'll get back to that if you like. But most of the places you go are designed for people who eat cooked food. That means they're heated to a temperature that makes it comfortable for a person who eats cooked food. Now, when we understand that the average cooked fooder has a body temperature of about 98.6 and the average raw fooder is more than 2 degrees cooler than that, you can understand how a room that's supposed to help a cooked fooder stay cool is going to make a raw fooder cold. So even a restaurant or a movie theater or an opera house or wherever you might find yourself, a public place, a library, for any place really, is going to be designed for the comfort, or it's going to be heated or cooled for the comfort of the people who eat cooked food. It's like going into a house of a left-handed person, where everything's designed for a lefty. You really notice the difference if you're a righty.
Did you want to finish up on the laws against cooked food?
Oh yeah, that piqued your interest.
A little bit.
Well, back in 2001, when they discovered that acrylamide was coming off of baked potatoes and whatnot, and that acrylamide being a class 1 carcinogen, I thought everybody was just going to stop eating cooked starches overnight, but that didn't happen. But the news was so big that restaurants are releasing acrylamides into the atmosphere, and this is class 1 carcinogen. When you breathe it in, it's in your bloodstream as well. We have freedom in this country to swing your arms anywhere you want, but you can't hit other people's noses. And so it very quickly became a law in California, and then dozens of other states followed suit. And the law basically says that it is illegal to cook starchy foods without putting up a sign, unless you put up a sign in your establishment, in your food establishment, saying that you are releasing acrylamides into the atmosphere, you're cooking baked potatoes or whatever you're making, and people who come into your establishment need to be forewarned and do so at their own risk. I thought it was interesting. But a couple of years later, again in several dozen states, and then eventually I believe all states followed suit, it became illegal to cook in a public establishment anything that contained trans fats. I believe it was Krispy Kreme donuts around the country that had a problem with that because they were using trans fats in their donut mixture, and it made a lot of headlines because, you know, it was a big company, and they had to come up with a new way to make their donuts where they didn't use trans fats. But once again, the wording is, it is illegal to cook if you're using trans fats. And this time it wasn't even a matter of letting people know. They just made it all out illegal. Now, my experience with the law is that once a bunch of politicians make a law about something, there's a very good likelihood that they're going to make another and another and another. And for me, the relevant phrase is not the fact that it was trans fats or acrylamides. The relevant phrase was the first few words. It is illegal to cook. And I think we're going to see more laws making it illegal to cook this, that, or the other until, just like with smoking, it becomes immoral to cook. And once that happens, we're going to live in a whole new world.
On the call
it's
here
coming.
with Dr.
It's coming
Graham.
Full steam. I'm sorry?
On the call here with Dr. Graham, and you heard it here. Let's go over to Brad on Skype. Skype, you're with Dr. Graham here. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, we're with you.
Yes, I had a question about monomeals. What is the pros and cons of having different types of fruit in the same meal?
Well, some fruits taste really well together. That's certainly a pro. And some fruits seem to complement each other rather nicely. That's a real pro, whether that be for texture or color or flavor. In terms of digestion, the monomeal is the rule organized by nature. I mean, if you're under a peach tree, you're going to eat peaches. You're not likely going to go off in search of a lemon tree so you can have lemon and peaches, or go off looking for a banana plant so that you can go harvest a couple bananas, bring them back to the peach tree, and make some kind of a combination. So certainly the model set in nature says one food at a time. When you're hungry till you're full, come sit under this apricot tree and make a meal of it, and then move on to your next meal. If you want to leave the tree, fine. If you want to camp out under the tree, fine as well. In terms of digestive effort, the least digestive effort and the best digestion happens when you keep your meals really simple. So in that sense, the monomeal makes a lot of sense for people who have digestive troubles, whether that's diverticulitis or ulcerative colitis or spastic colon syndrome, and on through all the various things that can happen from GERDs to Crohn's and on down the line. Eating extremely simply avoids incurring the question, I wonder what I ate that made me feel so bad. So there are very many reasons to include the monomeal. Whether or not you choose to eat solely mono, I think is totally up to you. Whether you want to eat greens, lettuce, celery, even cucumbers with your fruit, again, I think it's totally up to you. Some people like greens with their fruit. Some people prefer to have it at separate meals. I don't think it's really all that big a deal. In fact, I don't think nutrition is all that big a deal on 80-10-10. I think the people who need to be concerned about nutrition are your next-door neighbors. The people who are still eating fast food and packaged food, primarily out of bottles, boxes, bags, and cans. I think these people need to be gravely concerned about their nutrition, whereas we raw fooders eating 80-10-10, eating incredibly simple, nutritious food, I see a lot more room for being relaxed about it than most people give me credit for. It's not that I don't care. I just don't really feel I need to worry because I'm eating so well that why worry about it?
Thanks for the call. You're on with Dr. Doug Graham. We're about 3 minutes to the top of the hour here. Dr. Graham, and 3 hands up. We'll take these last 3 calls. If you submitted a question and a lot came in, I'm going to forward them over to Dr. Graham. He'll have your email address. Is that okay, Dr. Graham?
Sure, I'll do my best. Because
a lot came in, and we just couldn't handle it all in the hour that we're here. We're going to finish up with these last 3 calls. We've got a contest giveaway. Freely's coming on to talk about her experience with 80-10-10. And let's go over to Arizona and area code 480. Hello, you're on with Dr. Graham.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is John, and first off, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Dr. Doug Graham, for being on this radio, and I think that for probably everybody here listening, you've been a true inspiration for their lives and the way they live it. Very much so.
Thank you very much. I mean, I always enjoy. Oh gosh.
So my question.
I just want to thank Steve. Really, I mean, Steve and I go back pretty far, and we've always had good interactions. And I just want to thank Steve for making the opportunity to make the platform available.
Thank you, Dr. Graham.
Awesome. So my question is, for some of the newer and younger people to 80-10-10, you know, myself being 26, you know, there's obviously a lot of dogma and artificial information put out there on the internet and people's beliefs, but specifically to young men and like manliness and livelihood and reproduction, I was curious to know about like any kind of physical benefits to like sexual performance and just general the organs in terms of, you know, because there's some thought out there that you need to eat meat for testosterone, which, you know, for the most part, I think everybody intuitively believes is, you know, just not true. But I was curious to know what your, you know, opinion or what you've experienced from just the thousands of people that you've influenced and the feedback you've gotten from them on like overall sexual performance for the long term.
Well, that's long-term sexual performance, huh? I got married at 50. Rosie was pregnant 4 days later. I would say that says it all, but it really doesn't. The studies that do exist on veganism show that vegans tend to have higher testosterone levels than non-vegans. All of the research that I've done and have looked into, both for helping to get sick people well or for helping athletes recover and perform their absolute best, has always shown us that on 80-10-10, recovery is heightened. And I don't think that really matters whether it's from a disease, from a training session, or from, you know, sexual activity. Recovery is heightened. This is key. This is truly key in terms of our ability to perform. There, you know, the farmers have an old saying that a plant in need is early to seed, and certainly if a person is not particularly well or isn't taking care of themselves particularly well, it's very possible that they're going to have a heightened desire for sexual experience above and beyond what one normal. So we're not really looking to recreate that. But personally, I've seen no change in my ability to perform or my desire for closeness. If anything, being healthy has helped that no end. Interesting, though, is that we know that the other approach doesn't work, because in 1960s, some 5% of college-age males were considered impotent, unable to have children. Today, that number has gone up. In 50 years, that number has gone up now to over 25% of college-age males who are impotent. This speaks really poorly for the standard Western diet and lifestyle, and makes me feel very, very comfortable in endorsing 80-10-10.
Thanks for the call. Let's go over to Connecticut, area code 860. You're on with Dr. Doug Graham.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. That's a tough one to follow right there. But speaking of performance, nice segue. I'm actually I'm 80-10-10 raw vegan. I'm loving it. I've been doing it all year. I've been training for the New York Marathon, and this is eye on the prize. So 2.5 weeks, kind of nervous about it. And I just wanted to get your expertise on nutritional strategy for it. I'm assuming in the morning I'm going to kind of load up on some fruit. Everyone else I'm running with, they're doing goos, they're doing, Gatorade on the run. What's your advice?
How long is it going to take you to finish?
I'm looking at 3:15. I'm trying to qualify for Boston. I think I could do it.
To run a 3:15, I'd bring 3 or 4 dates with me at the all-time maximum most I would consume during the course of that run. I would not consume more than 3 or 4 dates. That's all you could possibly need. You figure 4 dates is 300 calories from carbohydrates, which means you're going to make 600 calories available to you, 300 from carb and 300 more from fat. But if you go in fully loaded, you're already going to have 3,600 calories, 3,400 calories available to you. And even running at that pace, you're not going through really 120, 130 calories per mile. So technically, you could run on 80-10-10. Technically, you could run the entire marathon without taking in any fuel whatsoever, and you still won't drop into blood sugar. But to be on the safe side, if you had 1 date every 5 or 6 miles, you will never, ever, ever get anywhere near that wall, and you'll be just fine.
Thanks for the call. And our final one of the night with Dr. Doug Graham. And we've got some contest giveaways, which includes the 80-10-10 ebook, so stay tuned for that. Illinois, area code 815, and welcome to the call with Dr. Doug Graham.
Hi. My question is, I have 4 children, and they are mostly whole food vegans. They're all vegan, mostly whole foods. And I'm a nursing mom. I'm just wondering if 80-10-10 is appropriate for nursing moms and kids at all.
Well, it's a great question. For nursing mom, absolutely. 80-10 is the best way to go. You just got to make sure you eat enough calories to make up for all that, the calories you're giving away to your children. Typically, 1 5 or 6 month old is going to take in almost 1,000 calories a day from you, meaning you have to eat as much as you ate in your 9th month of pregnancy if you're only nursing 1 child. As far as 80-10-10 for children, I think there's 2 issues involved here. Number 1 is fruits and vegetables for children. Absolutely, yes. Fruits and vegetables for children. In every species, the adults of that species, once the child is weaned, okay, so let's step back. In every mammal species, with the possible exception of the duck-billed platypus, they all feed their kids mother's milk first, and as they wean from mother's milk, they introduce them to the food that the adults of that species eat. And so the same for us. We want to introduce our kids to the foods that the adults eat, which on 80-10-10 is fruits and vegetables. But because mother's milk is almost 50% fat, and standard 80-10-10 protocol calls for 10% fat near the maximum, we have to incorporate a weaning process. Now, before Western culture really took over what we would call the civilized world, the weaning process itself worldwide, average age runs from 7 to 10 years before the weaning process is completed and the child is now eating identically to the adult of the species. And I think we can use that as our model to allow for the fact that children are going to eat more fat than their parents, at least for those years, which could be anywhere from 5 to 12 years or more. And so if we're starting from a 50% fat diet and we're weaning over a decade or more down to a 10% fat diet, you're only looking at coming off, 40% of calories over a decade or more of weaning. So 3 or 4% a year at most, as we cut back down on the fatty fruits, the avocados and the nuts and seeds and other sources of fats. Gradually, the children will learn to become ever more reliant on fruits and vegetables. If that's the model they see, they'll get better at eating sufficient volume to hold them from meal to meal with practice. And by all means, I recommend a diet of fruits and vegetables for youngsters. I think it's the most critical time in the life of a human for eating fruits and vegetables is when children are young.
Thanks for calling in. And a great way to sum it up, and those questions were fantastic. Dr. Doug Graham, thank you so much for being here. The website is foodandsport.com. Dr. Graham, anything to say in closing here?
Well, other than, several things if you'll give me a moment, Steve. Thank you.
Of course.
First of all, it's foodandsport.com. It's only 10 letters, so that N is just an N, not an and. Foodandsport.com. I saw an interesting thing happen this year. For the first time in 15 years, there were no raw food seminars, no raw food conventions, no raw food extravaganzas happening in physical locations anywhere in the world this year. But there were almost a dozen 80-10-10 extravaganzas around the world. There was a fruit festival in Spain and a raw food festival, a fresh food festival in Denmark. There was the Woodstock event and the month out in Cedar Woolley that I ran. There was a Brazilian event. There's a Thailand event and several others that I know of that happened, which I think is a fantastic indicator of the growth going on in the 80-10-10 movement. Really shows that not only are people getting into 80-10-10, but they're staying in. And I think this is a critical difference between trying raw food and getting back out, and trying raw food and succeeding with it to the degree that you don't want to stop. So I'm honored once again to be involved in the movement. I'm thrilled to see it growing like it is. I'm excited about our release of the ebook, and also want to, just so you know, although policy says I'm not supposed to leak this, but we're expecting before 2013 is over that 80-10-10 will be in at least 24 different languages available around the world.
Wow.
That's just due to popular demand. People are coming to us asking for, rights to do that, and we see releasing at least 24 different versions by the end of next year. So it's kind of exciting times.
Fantastic. Dr. Doug Graham, always a pleasure. I'm going to unmute everyone's line so you can all say goodnight to Dr. Graham before he signs off here. But let's just hear from everyone at the same time and make total chaos. 200 people right there. Dr. Graham, thank you for being here. And we lost him, but that's fine, and that was the end of his segment. Thank you all for being on the call. Right now we're going to do our giveaway before we introduce Freely, and it's for a package here that includes the 80-10-10 ebook. We're going to throw in the Rawpalooza 2012 Raw Food World Summit, complete VIP access to every session, including the transcripts and bonus gifts, which includes ebooks, audiobooks, and more, and a year subscription to Veg World Magazine, which is the sponsor of this event, and Dr. Doug Graham will be contributing to that magazine. It's a way that we're getting this message out to the mainstream, and we'd love you all to be a part of that. If you look at your website for everyone, we've got a free issue of that magazine at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham at the bottom of the webpage. Click for your free issue of Veg World Magazine, and we're going to give you a year subscription. If you're on the iPad, that's the optimal way to view it. Or if not, if you're on the computer, Mac, Android, iPhone, any other device, we can set you up with a subscription for that too. So that's the 3-package giveaway, the 80-10-10 ebook, Rawpalooza, and Veg World complete access for a year. And we're going to do a Name That Tune here. So when you know the answer, it's *2 on your phone if you know the name of this song.
All love, all love, all love. I don't eat no meat, no dairy, no sweets. Only ripe vegetables, fresh fruit, and whole wheat. I'm from the old school. My household smell like soul food, bruh.
I'll see a couple of hands up. The first one was in area code 815. Hello, do you have the name of the song and the artist?
It is Dead Prez, and I think it's Fruits and Vegetables. It's probably wrong, but I know it's Dead Prez. I have the song.
Well, you had the artist right. Sorry, you didn't have the song title right, but let's see. Going across the country from California to Pennsylvania, area code 610. Do you have the artist and name of the song?
Well, she said the name of the artist, and I didn't really hear it, but I was just guessing All Love because that's how it started.
Oh, gosh. No, that's not it either. Okay, I'm going to put it on again for you guys. *2. She gave us the name of the artist. We just need the name of the song, and it's *2. And you know, if you're listening on the web player, we encourage you to call in through Skype so you're part of this. And let me cue that up again here.
It's all love.
I think this one's on Skype in Illinois. I don't have your name. Is it Ken?
Yeah, it is. Sure is. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ken. Hi. Do you have it?
Yeah, Dead Prez. Be healthy.
That's absolutely right. Yes. Congratulations, Ken. You win the 3-package giveaway of the 80-10-10 ebook, Rawpalooza, and Veg World Magazine for a year.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks for the great session.
Thank you. If you can just send me an email, reply to the emails we sent you out today, and just give me your best email address to set everything up. It's all digital, and we'll get it over to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for playing. And if you didn't win, you're going to have another chance. We're going to do another contest giveaway. We're going a little later with the call because we've got another special guest. It's almost like a double session here where you're going to get some more questions answered because we're going to bring Freely on the call in just a minute here. Freely, the banana girl, she's going to answer your questions too and tell a little about her story of following a low-fat, raw food diet. So stay tuned for that. We're going to play a little bit of music, and we'll be back with Freely in the next, I would say, 3 minutes. Stay tuned for our next session with Freely.
Alright with me, 'cause you
Okay, thanks for holding. Welcome back to the call right now. And our next guest right here on You Interview the Masters, it's Freely, Banana Girl. She's joining us from Australia. She's an author, speaker, YouTube health guru, Facebook educator, and animal rights activist. She's also the co-creator of the busiest raw vegan website on the planet, 30bananasaday.com, and the author of Go Fruit Yourself, which we're offering a special on that too. If you noticed on the page, interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham, at the bottom of the page, you're going to get 10% off Freely's best-selling ebook, Go Fruit Yourself, by entering in the code Banana Girl when you check out by the special link right there on the webpage. If you're listening on Raw Vegan Radio, you're going to have the same opportunity, so check that out too. And let's welcome right now to You Interview the Masters, Freely. Hello, Freely.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks for standing by and being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you. So maybe we can start before we take some questions from the audience here. Maybe you can just share your journey into 80-10-10, low-fat, raw vegan, and the journey you've taken with us.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been quite amazing. I've been on the lifestyle for 6 years now. I've overcome anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, depression, chronic digestive problems, acne, actually low thyroid function, so a whole host of problems. And, I had a consult with the daddy of raw. I call him the daddy of raw, Dr. Doug Graham, who you just listened to. Isn't he just amazing?
Oh,
I really enjoy.
It was just filled with information.
He always is. He inspires me all the time. And I was lucky enough in 2007 to have a one-on-one consult with him for 30 days. And that's what really got me started on the high-carb, raw vegan lifestyle. And now I'm here today, 6 years later, just feeling my best, performing better than ever, and just excited about spreading the message.
Yeah, no, what I like is you really get the connection between everything. It's not just about health, but you see the connection between the animals and the planet. Do you want to share how you brought that into it and developed that kind of awareness?
I started this lifestyle having absolutely no awareness about animals and the plight of animals, how we were, destroying the environment, destroying their life, everything like that. I grew up on a farm and we used to kill our own animals for food. It was pretty awful. And I used to have milk from the cow and all that sort of thing. And that was just our way of life. I thought that was normal. I basically thought that was normal until I was about 25 or 26. And the moment that really changed me was when I watched Earthlings. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Earthlings before, but if you haven't, definitely get on Google and Google Earthlings and watch it as soon as possible, because it's life-changing. So that was a turning point for me. And after that, I'm just like, oh my God, what have I been doing? I've been eating these animals and destroying their habitat, contributing to so much destruction on this planet that I have to definitely get the message out about this and be a voice for the voiceless, basically. They can't suffer in silence. And that is just a really important part of my message and my journey, and incorporating that is just vital. And I really recommend that everybody does that, because they're out there and they're suffering in concentration camps all over the planet while we're, sitting on the internet, surfing Facebook, having a good time, basically. They're out there suffering, so they need us to speak up for them.
Now, what is the biggest challenge you've faced on the raw food diet, and how did you overcome that?
It's definitely eating enough fruit. That's just across the board with all the people that I've mentored in the past, with my own experience, it's eating enough fruit. Because, on this lifestyle, there's no excitotoxins, there's no, carcinogenic oils, no addictive properties like opioids and amines and stuff like that. There's none of those things to get you really, wanting to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat like crazy, like most of the population is doing. They're eating the wrong foods, but they're not eating enough kind of, what am I trying to say? The quantity is okay, but the food is wrong. And it's because of those excitotoxins and things like that that they can't stop eating. And that is the biggest thing. The biggest challenge that I've found in my experience is people not eating enough fruit. And that's why I'm always like hammering the message home, you've got to eat enough fruit, eat more, because it's vital. Every cell in our body runs on glucose, and fructose is the most easily converted source. So we really need to get those calories, those fruit calories in. So a lot of people say to me, well, what about greens? What about greens? And I'm like, yeah, you got to eat greens too, but honestly, when you're first starting out, focus on getting the fruit in, or you won't be on the lifestyle long enough to receive the benefits. And the way that I overcame it personally is having ripe fruit around all the time. That is so important. Like, I always have a box of dates, at least like 3 boxes of bananas around. I'm looking out there now. I'm looking out into my kitchen, and there's 3 boxes of ripe bananas, and there's a box of dates. There's no way that I want to eat anything else when I'm faced with all that fruit, that ripe fruit. So that is very, very important. And that's my biggest tip, really, is always surround yourself with enough ripe fruit.
Now, when you're eating dates, is it okay? Do you eat dried dates and fresh dates? Because they're a little harder to get, right?
Yeah, especially in Australia. America is really spoiled. You guys are really, really lucky. The people from America, I'm a little bit jealous because I've seen, I've heard about the date people, and the dates that I actually eat are from California. They're not from Australia. So that's a really an amazing thing for Americans. You guys are really, really lucky. But I eat dried, semi-dried sort of dates. When they come from California, they're not fresh. They're not that nice, plump, juicy fresh, but they're sort of semi-dried, not fully dried, like, say, those Iranian dates you might get. And I generally have it in a Datorade. Actually, I have a recipe. I hope everyone's got their pen and paper because I just want to give out one of my favorite recipes. It's going to be in my new book, The Banana Girl Diet, which is coming out eventually. But in the meantime, here's the recipe. I call it VG Chai Tea, and it's raw vegan, so there's no tea element in it, but it tastes like chai tea. So the ingredients are 20 dates. Medjool dates are the best, or honey dates. So 20 medjool or 20 honey dates, 1 to 2 apples, 1 teaspoon or more of mixed spice. So that has a whole lot of different spices. You can Google that, but it's kind of got the same flavor as chai tea. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1.2 to 1.5 liters of water. And you just blend that on high speed for about a minute. And Steve, I've got to tell you, it is incredible.
Did you say 1 teaspoon of mixed chai?
No, mixed spice.
How did you spell that? What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Maybe it's an Australian. It's a mix of different spices, like warm, like nutmeg, and there might even be some dried ginger in there or something like that. It may not be completely in line with 80-10-10, but it's something that I find my body tolerates just fine.
What's the spelling on it again?
So it's mixed spice, SPICE.
Oh, spice. Oh, it was cutting off. Yeah, it's just me. Anyway, we're here in front of a studio audience, and thank you for that recipe. I wrote it down myself.
Okay.
We've got a studio audience here. You might not realize it, but they're here on the call with us, and it's *2 to raise your hand and get on the call here with Freely. Any questions about her journey and inspiration, all the incredible work she's doing to spread the message, I'm sure she's willing to share as well. It's *2. And if you're in the chat room or on the webpage at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham, you can type in your questions there. We'll be looking at those throughout the evening here. So it's *2. Freely, you ready to take a couple of calls here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, let's connect New York with Australia and area code 718. You're connected.
That's me?
You're with us.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, hi. That's very interesting, but could you please say what you said after the mixed spice? I couldn't hear it.
Sure, it's half a teaspoon of cinnamon.
Half a teaspoon, and that's it?
Cinnamon.
And then the water.
Oh, and then the water, 1.2 to 1.5 liters of water, which is kind of like a quart equals roughly a liter.
Okay. 1 quart equals 1 liter.
Okay, thanks for that.
And New York accent, by the way. I do.
We'll post that recipe on this website afterward at the Interview the Masters, so you guys will have that recipe there. Let's go over to Pennsylvania, area code 610. You're on You Interview the Masters and Raw Vegan Radio with Freely.
Hi, Freely. It's really nice to be able to talk to you.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, I missed you at the Fruit Fest.
Who is that? I recognize that voice.
Well, you might, because maybe Harley's been playing my YouTube videos. He actually joined my Fruit Fanatic 33 channel, which made me really happy.
Oh, awesome. I thought you were my friend Alicia, actually, but you have a very nice, warm, familiar voice. So.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's really nice to talk to you. And I have a question. I love fruit, and I really absolutely do love fruit, but I feel like sometimes it's just too much. And I just want something other than fruit. And I've been a person who really enjoys many different ethnic foods, so which means I really like spicy foods. And I feel like I really miss it. And it turns me into someone who goes out and binges, because I just seem to feel like I need more spice in my life. So what can you suggest for me to help those cravings?
It's definitely another case of not eating enough fruit. And I know it can get to a point where sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want any more fruit. For me personally, I don't have that feeling anymore because it's been so many years. But I understand at the start of your journey, like it was for me, I was feeling that same way. And not only is it that we're not eating enough fruit, but also that you're eliminating certain excitotoxins and, like I said before, carcinogenic oils, foods or substances that aren't meant to be in our body. So we're eliminating them through our bloodstream and lymphatic system and sort of re-experiencing the cravings for those certain foods. So it's sort of like this process that you have to get through. You have to be patient, and during that time, even when you don't want the fruit, you just have to bring the fruit to your lips, just almost robotically sometimes at that early stage, until you get past those cravings. So it's like this double-edged sword. It's like not enough fruit calories and also the excitotoxins being re-experienced and the salts as well.
Thanks for calling in. You're on the call with You Interview the Masters here, part 2. We had Dr. Dung Graham the first half of the call, and now we've got Freely joining us with some inspiration and strategies that you might find helpful to transition or stay the path of eating wholesome raw food diet. Let's see, it's *2 to raise your hand, or you can post your question, and we'll try to get to that throughout the evening here. Let's see, area code 438, back to Canada in Montreal. Hello, you're on the call.
Hi. Hi, Freely. So my question, you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So my question is, when I did 80-10-10 for 1 month, 100% successfully, basically I was basically like almost forcing down banana smoothies, and but that's the only way that I managed to stay 100% raw, because I was full. And like when you're full, you don't feel like eating cooked food.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for that? Because I find it's really hard to, like it doesn't like fit in your stomach. You basically really have to force it down. It's really hard to eat such a big volume of food. Like, is there you can transition to that?
Yeah. How long have you been doing it 100%?
I only did it for 1 month. Like
1 month.
6 months ago, yeah. And then most of the time I only do 80%.
It's definitely a paradigm shift, because our bodies, our digestive systems are used to dried, dehydrated food, cooked food. And then once we get these fruits in our belly that are full of water and guar and pectin and fiber and everything like that, it really feels quite filling. I remember when I first came to the lifestyle and I was overcoming like anorexia and bulimia, and the last thing I really wanted to feel was that full feeling in my stomach. but it's a feeling that we have to get used to, and we have to sort of just push through that feeling of, oh, I'm too full, I can't eat anymore. Not to the point of, vomiting, obviously, but just pushing it that little bit further, which can allow us to, fit more calories in. And also, if you're not enjoying bananas, then eat something else. Like that recipe that I just posted. Do you like eating dates or?
Well, actually, no. I find them too sweet. I don't really like them, no. But I do like bananas.
You do like them, yeah. But you're just finding that you're feeling too full and...
I find it hard to eat, such a big volume of food.
Yeah, it does get easier. It really is just, it's practice and kind of going out of your comfort zone as far as the feeling in your stomach goes as well, because I know it is quite a foreign feeling. And just keep in mind that the benefits are well worth it.
The benefits were amazing.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. No, go ahead, finish up there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say keep focusing on how good you're feeling, like the benefits, all the positives, and it will become easier. Still, a month is so early on in the journey.
Well, we're going to take another call here, Freely, and then we're going to do we'll talk a little about your book and the special offer we've got, and then we'll do a giveaway and then wrap up with a couple more calls. Does that sound good?
Awesome. Good.
Thanks for joining us here from Australia. Let's see, area code 815, you're on with Freely, and you interview the masters on Raw Vegan Radio. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, I had a question. How did you overcome candida?
Well, candida is present in our bodies all the time, but what we want is the candida levels to be in control, like in balance. So we don't want to kill the candida. I have a lot of people emailing me saying, I want to kill my candida. I'm being infected with candida, but we don't want that. So we want to just bring the candida population back into balance. And it is really actually very easy. And I brought my balance back, my candida population back into balance within a month when I first started on High Carb Raw Vegan. And the way you do that is just by following the prescription, keeping the fat level below 10% of daily calories, combining your food properly, being hydrated, getting enough sleep. So following the 80-10-10 diet, basically just following Doug Graham's recommendations, but doing it long enough to actually bring the candida back into balance. Keeping the fat low is very, very important, because when there's excess fat in the blood, it traps the sugar from the fruit, and it coats the insulin receptor sites, it coats the cell walls, it coats basically everything, and the sugar can't leave the blood into the cell, and then that raised sugar level feeds the candida population, and then it mushrooms out of control. So the answer is cut the fat, so keep the fat intake low, but below 10%.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Well, and thank you for calling in. So, Freely, we appreciate the special offer here, and I just want to tell everyone about it, that you're working on your new book, but we're doing a special offer on Go Fruit Yourself, which is a beautiful ebook, and it's 10% off for everybody on the call here or listening on Raw Vegan Radio. There's a link on the website, interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham, and you'll find that towards the middle of the page under the picture of the Banana Girl. Just click the link and enter the code Banana Girl. It's one word in lowercase. That's your discount code, and we're only going to have that up for a couple of days, so take advantage of that. I have the book. I think it's amazing. Can you tell everybody on the call a little about that book?
Thank you. Yeah, well, that was, the culmination of my whole journey, basically over the last 30 years is in that book. Just my past, where I've come from, and how much the raw food lifestyle has changed my life, and all the kind of the mistakes that I made initially on the raw food journey and throughout the couple of years that I first went on it. It's all about helping newbies. So it's me just showing everybody else what mistakes that I made and giving them better sort of things to do so they don't make the same mistake that I made. And I was eating too much fat. That was something that was really big. I was eating too much fat. I was having superfoods. I was getting into spirulina and stuff like that. And so the book just shows where I went wrong and where you can avoid the pitfalls that I made. And also just basically like about my story. I've had a lot of like good reviews about it. And if you want to check out the testimonials and the reviews on it, you can go to, I think, the sales page, and it will have a little bit about that.
Yeah, the link that we have, the interviewthemasters.com, Doug-Graham will take them to that sales page, and they can see the testimonials. And if you're listening on Raw Vegan Radio, under today's show notes, that link will take you there as well. So thank you, because Freely, we appreciate it. You know, that helps fund the show because you're giving us a generous contribution from every sale. So I just want to thank you for that.
That's my pleasure. Like, I really thank you for having me on, honestly, because I'm passionate about spreading the message, and I'm lucky to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, yeah, we're happy to have you on Raw Vegan Radio, and you interview the master, so it's great just to bring you to this platform. And the good news is we're going to do a giveaway right now. Freely, we'll give you a minute, and then we'll take a couple more calls before we wrap up. And right now I'm going to do a contest giveaway. Does that sound good?
Sounds awesome. Good.
Okay, give you a chance to get a drink of water. And if you're on the line or listening on the web player, we encourage you to call in so everyone has a chance to win. You can do that through Skype, no matter where in the world you are right now. And it's going to be *2 when you know the answer. We're giving away a big package right now that includes Freely's Go Fruit Yourself ebook, the 80-10-10 ebook by Dr. Doug Graham, complete VIP access to Rawpalooza from rawpalooza.com. And that includes all the transcripts, bonus sessions, and everything else that you might have missed during that event, which had over 60 speakers, including Freely and Dr. Doug Graham. They were part of that event back in January. And a 12-month subscription to Veg World magazine from vegworldmag.com, which is my heart and soul goes into that magazine, and I think you're going to love it. So it's definitely worth checking that out. It's *2 when you know the answer. It's a Name That Tune. *2 if you know the name of the song and the artist.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it.
Well, a bunch of hands went up at once. I was like wondering if we're going to stump everyone on that one. The first one's in Pennsylvania, area code 610. Do you have the name of the song and the artist?
I think it's Rainbows by Kermit the Frog.
What was the name?
Rainbows?
Sorry. Sorry, but the next one in the queue, I'm not seeing where you're calling from, but I just have that your area code 614. 614, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Do you have it?
Is it Rainbow Connection by Kermit the Frog?
Yes, that is absolutely right.
Awesome.
Rainbow Connection by Kermit the Frog. Who's this?
It's Michelle from Australia.
Great, Michelle. Congratulations. You won that 4-package giveaway of the Go Fruit Yourself ebook, 80-10-10, Rawpalooza, and Veg World magazine. Just reply to your email that you got about tonight's event and just give me your full name and email address, and we'll set you up with all of that.
Okay, awesome. Hey, Freely.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, did you want to say something to Freely?
Hey, hello.
Okay, thanks for playing. Freely, Once again, we're wrapping up tonight's call. It's *2. If you've got a question for Freely before we wrap up, I'm going to go over to the chat room, some of the questions that came in, and let's see. Okay, let's see. This one's from Wendy in Melbourne, Freely. She's interested in becoming a vegan. How can I safely start? Do I first cut out meat little by little? And a good question there.
Yeah, well, you can do that, but I recommend just cutting it all out, I'm not going to use the term cold turkey. It's not the best, but you know what I mean, like just straight away, overnight. It's been done 1,000 times before, and it's definitely possible for anyone to do that. That is basically what I did. I did have a little bit of fish for a couple of days, I think it was, and then I went full into raw vegan, not just vegan, raw vegan. So it's just a choice, basically. So I have a video. If you put into the YouTube search, how to transition to a raw vegan lifestyle, it will come up with a really quite a good prescription, I think, for changing to not only a raw vegan lifestyle, but a vegan lifestyle. So just increasing the amount of carbohydrates you have in your diet, replacing the meat and the dairy and the eggs with carbohydrates, because that's the biggest mistake I see a lot of people make is they switch to a vegan diet, but they don't replace the dense calorie source that they were getting from meat and dairy with plant foods. They end up under-eating, and before they know it, they're like, oh my God, I'm so weak without meat. I need a good steak. You know the story. But that's actually not the case. It's just it's not about there being any sort of nutrients in the meat that our body needs. It's just a caloric deficiency.
Well, thanks for that question, Wendy. Let's see, area code 213 here in Los Angeles, California. You're on with Freely, who's in Arizona. I was going to say Australia. Los Angeles, you're with us.
Hi. I have a question about, I guess, fatigue and muscle fatigue in particular. I've been doing the 811 lifestyle for several months now and working out 5 days a week, cycling, running, yoga. And I definitely eat enough calories and get enough sleep, but my muscles feel fatigued a lot. Is that normal?
How many calories do you eat a day?
Probably about 2,000 to 3,000.
Yeah, and you've been doing it consistently 100% for a couple of months?
Yes.
Yeah, and how much sleep do you get?
Probably 7 hours a night.
And what about water?
Yeah, I drink water all day long.
Yeah, it sounds to me like a water issue, to be honest. Like that really sounds like you're not getting enough water, or you may not be recovering enough from your exercise, not sleeping enough. And the water thing's quite important. So it's important to know exactly how much water that you're drinking each day. Do you know how many quarts, or do you measure it?
No, I just, go by the color of urine, and it's usually almost clear. I mean, I think I could probably drink a little bit more, but I was just wondering, if that is normal in the beginning or anything.
Yeah, it's not really in my experience, but it does sound like either slight dehydration or you have too much fat in your blood. Mm-hmm. So if you're having are you having a little bit more fat than 10% or 5-10% a day?
Some days I don't have any fat, but then other days I might have a little bit more. So maybe.
That would be a good thing to keep an eye on, the fat intake. So if you could, over the next couple of weeks, so you can even email it to me over the next week, record everything that you eat via Cronometer.com. Mm-hmm. Record everything you eat and you drink and what you do for the next week, and then send it to me. Then I can give you more objective feedback, because it's kind of hard without seeing exactly what you're doing down on paper, so I can't really help as much.
Okay.
Yeah, and send it to me, definitely. You can get my email, my email is freely, FREELE, @30bad.com. So send it along. Hello? Are you there? Hello.
Oh, I guess I was talking to no one. My office heard what I said, and I guess I was just muted. But what I was saying for nobody to hear was that you're listening to You Interview the Masters on Raw Vegan Radio with our special guest Freely, and we've got a couple of calls on the line. So let's go over to Canada here, area code 819, and you're on with Freely.
Hi. I have a question about calories. Like, it seems like that fruit calories, like, do they digest, like should we be eating more calories from fruit than, like, more high fatty or cooked foods?
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, no, fruit calories definitely digest differently from cooked food calories. I always use this example, but you take someone who's eating, say, 3,000 calories from McDonald's, and you take someone who's eating 3,000 calories from fruit a day, like myself, and they are going to look and feel completely different. So they really can't be compared, the calories. I recommend as many fruit calories as you can fit in your belly. Like, never, ever restrict your calories. Even if you think, oh, my God, I want to lose weight. That will happen eventually. That should never be the focus. The weight should never be the focus. Feeling and looking, just feeling your best and performing at your best, getting fitter should be the focus. So eat as many fruit calories as you can.
Okay, this next question's in the chat room here. The question is, when I eat too many bananas or dates, my tongue gets sore and the corners of my mouth kind of blister. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it sounds like the bananas are unripe. It really does sound like a starch problem.
Okay, and our last call of the evening here, we're going to go over to Illinois. I think you're on Skype, and you're with Freely. Hello?
Hi there, Freely. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Thanks a lot for the Banana Boys and Banana Girls Facebook group. It's great.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is dealing with everybody else's questions when you're on this diet. And one of the big questions I keep having is, what about calcium intake for guys and for girls? How do you address that concern?
Well, all the calcium we need is found in fruits and vegetables. And actually, there's never been a calcium deficiency of dietary origin from insufficiency in the history of human beings. So this is from Dr. McDougall. There's never actually been a case. So worrying about calcium intake should be one of our last concerns. And I know a lot of people worry about calcium because of, osteoporosis and conditions, bone degeneration, conditions like that. But the irony is that the places where the consumption of dairy is the most is actually where they have the most osteoporosis. Those places have, I think it's somewhere in America where the consumption is the highest and the rate is the highest of osteoporosis. So there's no worries about getting enough calcium on this lifestyle. Just eat enough calories from fruits and vegetables and you got no problem. And do resistance training. Put the bones and the muscles against resistance to increase the bone mass and strength.
Well, Freely, thanks for joining an informative evening here. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention before we wrap it up here?
No, I'm writing the Banana Girl Diet, and that should be out before the end of the year, fingers crossed. Like, I'm putting a lot of time and money into making it as awesome as possible because I want to help women all around the world get out of this diet trap, get off the diet merry-go-round. And also, I just wanted to say how much I respect Doug Graham and, what he's done for the world, basically, for healthy living. He's a huge inspiration, and I don't know where I would be without finding the 80-10-10 book. I don't know where I'd be.
Well, it's been an incredible, informative evening. Freely, thanks so much for dropping by, and, as always, we'd love to have you back.
Thank you for having me. And you know what, Steve, I remember years ago, like 2006, early 2006, when I used to listen to you on the radio, and I'm like, man, this guy is cool. I really love this station. And I was so into it. So I just want to say thank you for continuing. You've been going for years, and it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Freely. I appreciate it. I love the work you're doing, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for being part of this. You made the job so much easier with your phenomenal questions. My thanks again to Dr. Doug Graham and Freely for being here. We've got your special offers at interviewthemasters.com/Doug-Graham for the discounts on the 80-10-10 diet ebook, only available through this outlet. It's the only place you're going to get that ebook. It hasn't been released yet. And the Go Fruit Yourself ebook. If you're listening on Raw Vegan Radio, we'll have those links for you. I invite you to check out Veg World Magazine. Freely will be contributing. Dr. Doug Graham's contributing, and all the leaders in vegetarian living to get the word out to the world and the mainstream. That's vegworldmag.com. I've got a free issue of it on the website for you on Raw Vegan Radio and on the Interview the Masters just to check out what we're doing there, because that's my heart and soul and passion. So check that out. Thank you for being here. You're on my email list. You're going to hear more leaders and your opportunity to connect with these special offers and opportunity to interview with me. Thank you all for being here, and have a great night.
Thank you for listening to You Interview the Masters with your host, Steve Prusak. Visit our website at www.youinterviewthemasters.com to register for future sessions with the leading minds in raw food, personal growth, human consciousness, and spirituality.